What
Hey,
is
everybody.
Reddit?
Really so autistic, it's unbelievable. And a bunch of fucking autistic weebs make their furry waifus and have sex with each other. Actually, that's a lie. Despite being a fucking furry waifu simulator, nobody has sex in this movie, which is just
Alright, just start the plot.
unbelievable. But I'm getting into the world building. Why, in a game where people can literally become furry waifus, why aren't they just having sex with each other all the time?
Just save us time and then restart. You can bring this up later.
Okay, anyway. There's some guy, and he goes into a video game, and it's called The Oasis, and it's a very big video game. And in the video game, there's these 3 keys hidden, and the winner, the guy who gets all the keys, gets to own the Oasis, and also gets a half trillion dollars.
$500 billion.
$500 billion. And so everybody wants this, and him and his friends and his waifu all work together to find the keys. And there's the evil business guy man who wants to win the game so that he can control
Dude,
the
I was trying
Oasis
to-
and sell microtransactions in the
And put
Oasis.
ads up.
And then they find the keys and live happily ever after. And he kisses the girl, and the end. Connor, what do you think of Ready Player One?
That is a very simplified version of the 2.5 hour long plot. I was trying to figure out who Evil Businessman was the whole time because he looked familiar. Like this fucking CIA looking knockoff. Thinks he's Aiden Gillen, but he's not nearly as good. He's Director Krennic from fucking Rogue One. Literally.
You're right!
I was trying to figure it out the whole time. But it's
He looks
pissing me off
familiar,
so
but I couldn't-
much. I'm like, what shitty movie is
I
this
couldn't
guy
place
from?
it.
I'm like, he's the bad guy from Maze Runner. I'm like, no, that's my man Aiden Gillen. Then I realized it was
You're right,
fucking
you're
Director Krennic. And I thought this movie starred Miles Teller until legitimately yesterday, which is a few days after we saw the movie. But regardless, Ready Player One was a clusterfuck pop culture reference movie. It really was trying to appeal to the pop culture obsessed society we live in today. References ranging from modern day, like Overwatch, 2000s, you had Halo, 90s, you had Street Fighter. I don't know why I'm talking video games exclusively, but there's Iron Giant, you had The Shining, you had about every Steven Spielberg movie ever, King Kong. Literally, fucking Mechagodzilla showed up. There was so much shit in this movie. It was a clusterfuck in the pop culture reference, which inherently had me walking in saying, I'm probably not going to like this. Because the trailers showed the whole fucking handoff. We know all this shit's going to show up, and it just kind of had me cringing. That said, the movie would have been okay had it been at 45 minutes to an hour shorter. The entire time, at the first hour and a half, I'm like, you know what, the characters kind of well established. There were some things that were rocky, but I'll get into that. Characters are kind of well established. The story wasn't the worst. It was basic. It felt like a basic plot. It wasn't anything particularly special or deep. But I was like, it's kind of enjoyable. And then I looked at my fucking phone and I realized there was an hour left because I knew it was 2.5 hours going in. And like an hour and a half when they were in the company, I'm like, wow, this movie still has a fucking hour left to it. And like the last hour of the movie could have been cut down at least 45 minutes. There's a fight sequence that's about 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long. Then there's a car chase sequence in the real world that's like 10 or 15 minutes. And then he's talking to the fucking Oasis guy's VR guy. And it's like, hurry the fuck up. I'm trying to go home. I already know what happens. It's an easy story to figure out. And it's like, you had things like the love plot between Artemis and not Miles Teller. And you're like, they're at first you're like, there's no chemistry, and Artemis is a completely different character at first, and then when her human form shows up, she's completely different. There's so much I have to unpack here, but let's start with the time frame. Not Miles Teller is telling his best friend, the black lesbian girl, that he thinks is a man, but that's not really that important when you really think about it. But but they mention it later, and then he's like, she's hot. And after they sort of team up with her, and she's like, stay out of my way, gamer girl. And then they meet up at the bar. And this is like their second scene together, and he's like, I'm in love with you. And she's like, you don't even know who I am in real life. In real life, I'm horribly ugly. And then he's like, I still love you anyways, because your avatar is my waifu. That's like the only fucking reason he was attracted to her, because she was like, you know, she's like crossed arms. She's a bitch, but then she's like, yeah, so what if I know a couple pop culture references? It's like, I'm in love with this bitch. And it's like, okay, you had no real experiences together. And I'm not saying like, you know, even if it was real life, I get that, you know, online dating and stuff, that's fine. But if I meet a girl online and I play video games with her, like if I was to play an Overwatch match with a girl, 2 Overwatch matches with a girl, and I'm like, damn, you know, the character you picked is kind of sexy. How the fuck do I fall in love with that girl and then immediately want to date her in the next scene and then make an ass of myself? And she's like, this is ridiculous. And then they meet in real life and she's like, see, I'm horribly ugly because I have a birthmark over my eye. And yet the actress that they picked is, you know, not ugly by any stretch of the imagination. It's like, okay, I have a hard time suspending my disbelief about the whole relationship. It's incredibly rushed. And then Artemis's personality changes when we meet her human form. Because at first she's kind of like a distant woman. And then on top of that, for some reason, she has like a whole group of people helping her in the resistance. And yet they also talked earlier about her Twitch stream. It's like, so wait, she has like a group of people and she's like, guys, set up the equipment. And all they do is put the VR headset on her. So I don't know why she needs 30 people in this operation. They don't have their own headsets that we see, and they don't team up in the final battle. So presumably, all they do in the one scene we see them is they put the fucking VR headset on her head. And then half the time she Twitch streams, she's like, this is serious. This is life or death. And then she logs on to Twitch and starts Twitch streaming. I'm like, that's just retarded. I know Twitch paid their way into the movie like many other franchises. What the fuck are you doing? Sorry. I know Twitch paid their way into this like many other franchises, but it's just like, there's a lot of things with Artemis that he's like makes no sense. And then the best friend and the 2 Asian guys that are on their team too, you know, they have no character pretty much. We learned that the best friend was like, the best friend's like a generic ass best friend character, no fucking story at all. And this is a 2.5-hour movie, so they had time to introduce 5 characters. Especially like, you know, the 2 Asian guys, you don't have to go that much into it, but one of them's just an Asian guy with no personality. The other one's like 11. They're like, wow, you're 11? 11-year-olds can play video games too. And it's like, that's his entire story, is that people show up and say that. So the only 2 characters are not Miles Teller.
You play video games? You're Asian!
They
wow!
They don't even do that. They don't even do that. He's just in there. He's like, my brother is 11! It's like, cool? I don't fucking know. And I couldn't really tell, like, they're like, there's a danger to this because they kidnap people, they put them in debt. What is the other company? I don't get it. The other company hires thousands of people to try to win the game for the Oasis. Fine. Sure. That's okay. I'm not offended by that. But when you think about it, what else does this company do? Where are they getting their money? Where are they getting these people indebted to be slaves? Do they have something in the Oasis where people borrow money from them in the Oasis? So do they have coin miners and the entire thing they do is then sell stuff on the third-party market? I don't get what they do.
They're like the
Or
Brazilian
are they loans?
bots.
My theory is that they like the Brazilian RuneScape lots, but they started out as like a loan shark operation and just got big. And for some reason, like laws, for some reason in 2045 just quit existing because everybody are vegan.
It's the post-apocalypse.
Everybody is a VR slave. You can just hold slaves. So they hold slaves and they're killing people, and I still don't get what the company does. I don't get why anybody's doing anything in that regard. On to Miles Teller character, his parents are dead because it's 2045, and I guess like they ran out of distilled water or something was the explanation. I don't fucking remember. And then the aunt dies, and he's like, oh boy, this kind of sucks, but I'm gonna have to get really good at this fucking video game. And they're like, this is serious life and death shit. They might put ads over our video game. And at the end of the day, the moral of the movie is, you know, sometimes you gotta live your own real life, yet the fucking purpose of the movie is to keep ads out of this fucking video game, and this company is killing people.
And yet this movie is just a gigantic ad for a bunch of shit.
For a bunch of video games and shit.
For a bunch of WB properties.
And then, like, you gotta live your own life, you know? You can't just be so pop culture obsessed that you waste your entire life on it. And it's like, well, this entire movie is trying to make money off of the pop culture obsessed. It doesn't make any fucking sense, man. But then let's talk about the Oasis. It has the whole concept of the Oasis winning thing, that there's supposed to be 3 keys. They have all these slaves, and if they switch pods, for some reason they can't respawn in the pod they're already in. No, I mean every other player can seemingly respawn. They have to go to the respawn pod, but someone else can just walk right onto the pod and start up. I don't fucking get it. I also don't get why people don't take their VR headsets off all the time, because when you take off your VR headset, you disappear instantly, yet no one fucking does it right before they're killed. I don't know if it's like, well, then you lose your money. That's never explained. But then it's like, so that doesn't make any fucking sense. The whole plot of the movie makes no sense. Miles Teller has virtually no motivation. I don't get what he's like, well, it's for the good of the game. Like, he's offered like $30 million to join up with the enemies for some reason. He's like, why won't you do it? He's like, do you not understand? It's for the good of the game, bro. It's like, what if if I was playing Call of Duty and someone's like, yo, if you join my Call of Duty team for $30 million, if you do it, I'd be like, fuck yeah, I'll join your Call of Duty team for $30 million. Because all they are is essentially a company of, like a giant esports company that wants to fucking win the game so that they can put ads up. And that's the whole villain's motivation as far as I know. But the 3 keys, anyways, getting back to that. The first one's a race where you're supposed to drive backwards. I do not believe in my heart of hearts that nobody would have... I said this in the theater. I'm like, someone would have found that it would not have taken 5 years. I don't know about instantly, but it would not have taken long. Like,
okay, here's the
thing. Because if you don't die and the race ends, then it goes on. Because that's what happened to, like... So it's not like there's any risk to just going backwards, but you think someone would accidentally... Like you said, crazy taxi law. You accidentally press the, you know,
crazy
you're accidentally
taxi,
already
you switch
in reverse,
between forward.
You
drive with R, but you switch between forward and backwards with A and B.
Or what if someone...
Half the time when I'm playing Crazy Taxi, I accidentally start in reverse because I use reverse to brake faster. And then, like, I pick up a guy, and then I start reversing. Somebody would have accidentally reversed.
And seemingly you can do the race whenever you want. So what also confuses me is how... You know, why someone just, you know, like, okay, let's say someone tries the race 5 times in a row, and it's just like, you know what, fuck it, I can't figure this out, I'm annoyed. Mario Kart principle, you start going backwards and you start fucking with this shit.
Absolutely.
So someone would have found that one in 5 minutes. The second key was the shining key. Okay. If I could play someone programmed this entire VR Shining game and no one's ever played it?
The Shining game doesn't even make sense because halfway through, like,
we're gonna
okay,
watch this
instead of the
movie
Shining,
and they're in the movie?
No, it's like halfway through, they're like, instead of the Shining, how about some fucking zombies doing ballroom dancing that you Super Mario Brothers across?
Well, and then,
like,
so they
it doesn't
finally
even make sense. It's not even the Shining.
Somehow no one solved this in 5 years or even got close. They solved this. Here's my biggest problem with that scene. I was like, what the fuck? Because the moment they solved it with no explanation, the villains instantly knew how to do it. Who told them? Because it's not like everyone in the world knew the second you backed up.
Twitch streaming.
The guy found out because they noticed, or like I think there was like a scene where they figured it out. But then all of a sudden it's like, now we're trying to figure out the shiny puzzle. So they start doing it, and they find out instantly. But it's like, how the fuck did they learn about the shiny puzzle? That's a really shitty puzzle if one person has to solve it and then everybody in the world knows. You think you could have kept that one under your belt? or like, you know,
Yeah,
somebody in the team had to have told. So I thought maybe there was like a mole.
At least in the
situation.
car race.
I thought there might be a mole or something.
At least in the car race one,
Well, they
there's like
noticed
30
when Artemis
witnesses.
did it or something.
There's like 30 witnesses, 30 other witnesses. But in the Shining one, they
It
go
makes no sense.
to a specific date at a specific time to a specific place that nobody else would be at, and do this very specific thing. How the fuck would anyone figure that out if they didn't have the clue in their hands?
Yeah, no. But it's like, okay, so you think maybe one of the main characters are a mole or something? That's what came to my mind for a second. But no, they just figured it out without any explanation. Just shut off your fucking brain and act like a retard and just like let it fucking happen, I guess. They found out the Shining mystery 5 minutes after the main characters conveniently with seemingly just randomly, I guess. Okay, that's what we'll go with. And then the final one, they found out the Atari game. You have to find the original Easter egg. And again, dude, if all you had to do was do something that was a pretty commonly known glitch in an Atari video game, you think some video game nerd would have been playing that at some point? Because for some reason, the Oasis has the rights to every single thing on planet Earth ever and is able to cross
As long as
with
it's
no
a WB
laws
property.
or, you know, but just in general, because apparently, like, they mentioned that even though we don't see Star Wars and all that shit, so presumably they have every property ever. That's just what we'll assume. And you literally have a vast archive of games and movies where people have programmed entire levels based on movies, like The Shining, presumably, like, Ferris Bueller or something, because, like, it wasn't like they found a secret level or something. They're just like, let's go to the movie, and then they're in the movie. So I don't know how this is all getting programmed, but they programmed every Atari game ever into the game because they had somebody in VR playing the Atari to try to win the game, to get the key so that they could put microtransactions in the game. And it's like, so they did all this work to put every Atari game ever in there. And granted, I know, you know, you're not going to get the largest traffic on Atari. There's a lot of video game nerds out there. You think one of them would be like, hey, I'm going to play some fucking Atari games. That'll be really fucking old school. Especially compared to the Oasis. And then they sit down and they...
I mean, how many fucking
Just find
Atari
the
games
Easter
do we
egg.
own? We probably have like 40 Atari games minimum.
Yeah, I mean, we don't play them all that much, but we play them from time to time. And, you know, there's a lot of people on planet Earth that like Atari and shit. And you think someone would find that secret eventually, especially since it's a pretty well-known Easter egg. Like, someone would have found it and been like, hey, I just randomly did this fucking obscure Atari thing and it ended up giving me a key. Nobody ever did that before. No one ever drove backwards before, and no one has played the Shining expansion DLC for the Oasis before. So, it's a lot of convenient shit that makes this world feel a lot smaller than it is. The Final War literally had like the Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is probably the last iteration of the Ninja Turtles I'd expect. It had Gundams. It literally had a Mechagodzilla designed off of the 2014 reboot Godzilla. I was fucking sick and tired of this movie. I got sick and tired of it, and the last hour was just an unbearable climax. It was just...
I was sick.
It wasn't the third
20
act.
minutes.
The last hour was not a third act. The last hour was a fucking climax for one straight fucking hour. Yeah. No fucking thanks. And that's the problem. Somehow, even though the story and the characters made no sense, I didn't completely hate this movie until I was forced to sit through the last hour and a half, and all the pop culture references was giving me a fucking headache because I didn't care. There's no demographic that this movie plays to, presumably. I mean, presumably those people that read like Gizmodo and Polygon are who this game is made for.
Kotaku.
Kotaku. Those are the websites that were dick riding at IGN. So this movie was, yeah, it was too long for its own good. Too many pop culture references for its own good. It really didn't even bother to iron out a good story or do much establishing of characters, even with its robust runtime. So Aiden, what did you think of Ready Player One?
Well. It's time to talk about some fucking anime. Okay.
Literally.
Basically, the story of this movie is nothing original.
No, 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 no.
Back in 1987, 88, whatever, Tron came out, and it's about people that go into the video game world, and you die in the game, you die in real life. You know,
That's not how this movie
the
is.
Tron. Yeah, I know. I'm getting
And you're
that.
transferred into the game of Tron. You can't get out. You
Yes,
start
I know.
living in the
Hold on. The Tron formula has a lot of variations. A lot of people have done it, you know. If we reference the Red Letter Media video, people know that we saw it, but we're not ripping it off. You know, the Danny Phantom did it. I'm reading this manga, Hunter Cross Hunter. You know, it's a good one. And coincidentally, I was just happening to be reading it right after we saw this movie. Well, actually, I started reading it before we saw this movie, but the third arc of Hunter Cross Hunter is about the main character and his friend. They go into a video game. The only way to get out of the video game is to collect all 100 cards. You know, you gotta collect all the items. You know, in this movie it's the keys. In that it's the cards. The Danny Phantom had the cards.
but it's
It's
not
not-
keys, but it was half of. It was not trying to get out of the game. That's more of a Tron plot because Tron's plot was
I
to
know.
get out of the game.
I know.
This was to get
I
half
know.
$1 billion or $500 billion.
Yes, I understand.
Half of
The
$1
thing
trillion.
is- It's not an original idea. People have done this before. And
Nothing
I'm gonna
is an
come.
original
I'm gonna
idea.
come back. I'm gonna come back to the anime. You know, Hunter Cross Hunter. You know, the reward for beating the game isn't getting out of it. You can leave at any time you want, just like in Ready Player One. You can just leave, quit, never come back. Except in Hunter Cross Hunter, the stakes are a lot higher because if you die in the game, you die in real life. And this is just like if you die in the game, you lose your fucking anime haircut, whatever the fuck. And on top of that, it's like, here's the thing. 3 challenges to get the keys to win this prize. It's nothing. It's nothing. People would have figured it out in a year, in a fucking month. Data miners would have been like, okay, this is how you do it, and done it. You know, and it's not interesting how they do it. They don't have an interesting take on this concept, you know. Tron was the first to do it, probably the first. I'm sure there might have been some obscure shit that did it before.
Where a guy goes in the
But
video
Tron,
games.
Tron is an original concept for all intents and purposes. And you look at it, Tron is like the baseline for this genre. You go into the video game, you do the thing, you know. And like, I'm just gonna, you know, I just want to make Hunter Cross Hunter instead of this shitty movie. But you know, they go in and like in the game, the game has its own rules. You know,
What does this have to do with Ready Player One?
In Hunter Cross Hunter, the game has like, you know, there's cards you can only use.
Yes, we know.
There's cards you can only use in the game that have magical effects. You know, there's like a layer to it that makes it actually feel like a video game. Like you get these spell cards and there's a limited amount of them. Players have to fight each other to get these spell cards, and spell cards all have effects. And it's like, it's interesting because not only is there stakes, like people die, you know, people die and they lose real things instead of just their fucking furry avatar personas, sexy nightgown, fuck toy dress. You know,
What the fuck are you talking about?
this movie has no stakes, is what I'm saying.
You said that for the last 5 minutes.
It's like, this movie takes this concept and does it in the most absolute boring way. There's no goal. The goal, they want to collect the keys so that they can prevent generic bad guys from ruining their video game waifu furry sex simulator, you know. It doesn't feel like anything important. Like as an audience member, I'm sitting there and not Miles Teller is sitting around going, if we lose the Oasis, we lose our lives. But it's like, you know, people get past that. People get past that shit in real life with microtransactions and shit. People just keep playing the game anyway because most people are fucking retarded. And we never get a real sense that the outside world is that bad. Like, the villains have...
They live in a trailer park and shit.
They live in a trailer park, and so do fucking millions of people in the real world. And the bad guys have drones and hitmen. You know how many fucking... Like, everybody can fly a fucking drone around. It's not fucking impressive or scary. You know, the villains can't, like, you know, it's not world-ending shit, you know, there'll be more video games. But they act like this is like the be-all, end-all of the fucking universe of this shitty video game that, you know, I'm not gonna lie.
How many people you think would die for Second Life?
There's probably quite a few.
There you go. Your answer is answered. Does it make for a compelling story? Probably not.
It's not interesting. There's 1,000 things, maybe not 1,000, but there's a ton of things that have done this, the video game war for the, you know, whatever.
MacGuffins.
The real life people go into the video games thing way better than this. Hunter Cross Hunter, Danny Phantom, Tron Legacy is better than this. This movie.
I don't know, I haven't seen Tron Legacy since 2011 or something, or 2010, whenever it came out, so I'm not going to comment, but
Yeah,
I like Tron Legacy as a kid.
The point is,
a problem against it.
people shit on Tron Legacy a little too much, but I can understand.
Tron Legacy had cool effects. It was kind of cool. I would watch Tron Legacy tripping balls, dude.
The thing is, there's just not, it doesn't feel like a video game. And it's hard to explain in a way. It feels like everybody sits around doing nothing all the time in this game. It's like Second Life. Second Life is a glorified chat server. In Hunter Cross Hunter, it feels like a game because there's a goal and people are working towards this goal and people are doing things towards this goal. In this movie, people just sit around doing random shit, doing nothing. They farm gold to get haircuts for their furry avatars. It's Second Life. It's not a video game. You don't feel invested in this game because it doesn't feel like a fucking game. People take it seriously like it's real life, but it doesn't feel like a game. The characters are all trash. The main character is basically no personality and just relies on other people to do his job for him. The girl, they're like, oh, she's so hideously ugly. And he's like making out with her and he's like, oh my god, you're the ugliest bitch I've ever seen. And she's just like this hot bitch with like a tiny makeup smear on her fucking eye. And you're like, what the fuck? This is the worst garbage. And then his friends are just like, there's black girl who pretends to be an orc, and the second I heard the voice, I'm like, that's a girl pretending to be an orc. Because the voice is so modulated that you know there has to be a twist to it. A twist. Because if you can see it coming from that far away, it's a twist, you know? And then Asian kid and other Asian kid are obviously related. You know, they're not going to have two random Asian people in this movie. There's nothing surprising about this movie. There's nothing interesting about it. It's a very generic paint by numbers video games, go into the video games thing, plot. I don't know what to call this fucking genre. The Tron genre.
Video game movies.
The Tron genre.
Video game movies. Movies about people going into video games.
Yes. But they fluff it with all these pop culture references, and they're so stupid. Like, there's nothing interesting going on. It's not like they use the properties in interesting ways. They're like, oh, it's King Kong.
Like,
look how spooky.
it was kind of like they were
King
trying
Kong
to do like
runs
a
around the
live
racetrack.
action.
He's like,
It kind of felt like they were trying to do the same shit they did in the Lego movie, except live action.
yeah, kinda.
You know what I'm saying? Where the Lego movie, you're like, wow, they got all these properties. Even like the Lego Batman movie kind of did it. And you're like, whoa.
The Lego Batman
That's kinda
movie was
funny.
kind of endearing about it though, because it was like
Lego
Lord
Batman-
of the Rings and Batman and all this stuff.
And the Lego
And this movie
were
was just
pretty
like-
good films too, though.
In this movie, characters literally just sat around reciting pop culture references. There'd be a thing, like, they'd show the Iron Giant, and then a character would be like, that's the Iron Giant from the 1996 movie, The Iron Giant.
Then he's like, wait, look
Starring-
at that shirt. Look at that pair of shoes.
And he's like, that's the shoes
Recognizes-
from the
no.
Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. People just
interrupted.
This whole movie is just people, it's cheesy pop culture references, and then people describing the cheesy pop culture references, and they wrecked some of the pop culture references, like Mechagodzilla. They couldn't get the rights to the classic Mechagodzilla, so they had to make their own, and it's the ugliest trash I've ever seen. And then, you know, there's things that don't even make sense, and nitpicking, you know, it's not my thing normally. I talk in pretty general terms about these movies, but like the Asian guy, he gets the magic item that lets you summon any robot, and he says, "I want to be Gundam." You know, Gundam has been going on for 40 fucking years at this point. There's like 1,500 fucking Gundams. And somehow the game is just like, okay, yep, there's only one Gundam, let's pick the original Gundam. The original Gundam's not even the most recognizable. If you're gonna pick a
That's
recognizable,
probably the one I recognize the best as a non-Gundam fan. That's the one I actually legitimately have seen before and would recognize off the top as being a Gundam character. I mean,
But
maybe, I don't know.
all the Gundams look fairly
I've never
similar.
watched an episode of Gundam.
All the Gundams
The
look
white
fairly
guy
similar.
with the fucking sword, I recognize that one. Although
But then-
you could make the comparison, what if he said, I want Transformer and then Optimus Prime?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
They're not talking in specifics. These pop culture references are like surface level at best. It's like, you know, they're like, I want to be Overwatch, and then they turn into Tracer because she's on the Overwatch box art, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's made to appeal to the very lowest common denominator, but at the same time,
The
you
things
know,
we see on screen, I want to point out, the things we see on screen is all of the box art characters. It's not like there's some
Always.
uncommon character in there.
Always.
It's like, if you see a Halo character, it's Master Chief.
Yep.
If you see a Street Fighter character, it's Ryu. There was Goro from Mortal Kombat was probably like the most obscure character
surprised it
from
wasn't
any
Scorpion.
franchise. I was honestly surprised it wasn't Scorpion.
the thing is, it's just a list of pop culture references
What
played
it
on top
feels
of
like they're
generic
like,
trash.
we need, you know, in the script, like when they did like the, like a lot of the references, it's like what, you know, insert 80s movie
Insert
reference.
something we can
Like
get the rights.
when they did the high school from Breakfast Club and 16 Candles, and then he mentioned the one from
Ridgemont.
Yeah, Ridgemont. He mentions that, and I felt like part of me just felt like, you know, the script writer wrote in the first draft like some sort of reference right here that he wouldn't know.
Oh yeah.
And then somebody is like,
Richmond High.
Richmond High, yeah. And the funny thing is, there's one point in the movie where there's like 20 people sitting in a boardroom talking about what video game might be the next one to play. And I literally was sitting in the theater thinking, like, this is actually what they fucking did in the thing. Like, can we get the rights to even mention Buckaroo Banzai? And it's like, probably, no one cares about Buckaroo Banzai. Giant mech robot, pick one. The guy's like, Iron Giant. They're like, put that one down, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
A robot comes out, Optimus Prime. It's like Paramount won't give us the rights. It's like Mobile Suit Gundam's probably a little bit cheaper than Transformers in the American market.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
it felt really retarded.
it's all like it's surface level garbage, but it doesn't really appeal to anyone. Me and Connor were the youngest people in the theaters.
Yeah, they were like 90.
Everyone else in the theater, there was like this one 30-year-old dude who sat right next to us, so we couldn't vape. So like, fuck yourself, dude. And then everyone else in the movie was like, probably between the ages of 50 and 70, and I'm sure they were like, oh, Spielberg's making another Holocaust
It
depiction.
probably wasn't even like that.
I don't know how they wandered into this movie. but
It was the
I
$5 movie.
I can't even imagine that they enjoyed this movie. They were
No,
probably
how
all
would they?
crying inside from fucking boredom because this
They're like,
movie
why is the big
has-
blasts going on?
This movie has the trashiest action I've ever seen. The racing scene is probably like 25 minutes long, and all it is, it's so confusing. It's shot like Transformers. It's like close-up of car tires, explosion, King Kong close-up smashing something, car tires, car windshield, close-up of a guy's face, King Kong, and it's just like all these jump cuts between all
There's
this
also
terrible CGI action. You're like, what the actual fuck? I felt like one of those old people. Like, I felt the same thing those old people did. It was just noise, loud noises, and the guy spouting 80s references over these loud noises, and I just wanted to cover my ears, close my eyes, and stop looking, because it was just this fucking colorful,
You know what
visual,
really bothered
ugly,
me?
terrible... Like, they made this colorful, explosion-filled race, and then they covered in, like, this horrible gray filtering after the fact that made it look like colorful yet gray at the same time, and noisy and fast, and I just wanted to go to sleep and be done with it.
You know what annoyed me? Whenever there was a character that was slightly off camera to save money, they made him look like shit. And for some reason, like with the Ninja Turtles and Master Chief, you can kind of get away with it pretty easily, where you can just kind of slide on by. But there was one point where they had Batman on the screen, and I remember he was in like his all black, like Michael Keaton style suit, and literally you couldn't see anything but like a little bit of peach where his mouth was. And I was like, that's pretty disgusting. And then later on, they had the Joker and Harley Quinn in there, and they looked fucking awful as well. And those are probably the two most notable examples. But whenever they had like
Well, the president
licensed
guy,
characters in it,
the president guy kept going in the game, and they had him as like generic businessman, and he looked like fucking. He looked worse than Princess Leia in fucking Rogue One.
you know what that asset might have been taken directly from? The fucking one of them DC Universe Online adverts. Because it looked just like the same style and shit. And I was like, is this shit like pulled from DC Universe Online?
And then fucking TJ Miller was.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
I hate TJ.
But my point is, I was gonna come around to my point, which is that like, there's a point where you have too much CGI for your own good, where even though you're in a video game, so you kind of get a pass, even though they intentionally made a lot of it cheap. Like the characters, you could tell, like, they would have made them super lifelike, but they're like, you know how much fucking money we could save if they look like Xbox?
Dude, it's a video game. It doesn't
360
matter if
advertising.
they look bad, because it's a video game.
Like everything looked really terrible though. Like, and it really, honestly, kind of was like, look at this guy, and look at that guy, and look at this dude who we want to directly reference, yet we can't get the facial likeness of the original actor, so the graphics are bad. Because like they blatantly put in like fucking Batman, and it was supposed to be the Michael Keaton Batman. It's like we can't Photoshop it to look anything like Michael Keaton, and all that shit, and it's just so fucking stupid.
The action, I brought up the car scene already, but the final war where they raid Castle Grayskull or whatever the fuck is the worst action scene I've ever seen in a movie. It's 45 minutes long of fucking 80s references running at each other and explosions. Tracer is there and the Ninja Turtles, and it's just a big chaotic mess of
like five
loud noises and big colors, and it just never ends.
Also, you know what bothered me about this scene? I can't stop thinking of like the smallest nitpicks, but there'd be like an explosion, you'd see like a cannonball go and it'd wipe out like 10 enemies. Then it cuts back to the fucking like enemy area, and they were standing on basically like these Dance Dance Revolution pads where they put their VR headsets on and they'd glow red when they died. And you'd see like a cannonball go and it'd like wipe out a group, then you'd see like a wipe in real life that resembled a cannonball, and it's like, wait. So all of these people are
just
playing
happen to be
in,
lined up
yeah.
like this instead of being randomly dispersed.
Like, is that something?
It was supposed to be cool visually, but it's
like it was kind of cool visually. And the first time I was like, I wasn't stimulated because my stimulating, any sense of stimulation I could possibly get from the fucking movie. It was cool, I guess. Like, it was kind of a cool visual. I didn't have anything against it, but then I thought about it and I was like, actually, that's really fucking retarded. When you think about it on a nitpicking level, but there's shit I could nitpick all fucking day and night about this movie.
The live action shit is really bad. I mean, the video game stuff is also really bad. But like the live action stuff is like intolerably bad, where it's just like this horribly forced.
Fucking balls with this stupid ass table.
This horribly forced Hunger Games shit. Like, oh wow, we're so hungry and oppressed, and the bad guys have drones. But anyway, I guess. You know, that other thing's probably not going to come to me, but my biggest complaint is that for a movie that's supposed to be like about people being in a video game, it really just does not feel like a video game. It doesn't feel anything like a video game.
We said this like an hour ago.
I know, I'm just saying, that's my biggest complaint about it, and the action is really noisy and annoying. And I think pretty much the only way it could have been done better would to be take the script and run it through a shredder and then start the fuck over. So Connor, what did you think of Danny Phantom?
You mean would I recommend playing?
Would you recommend Danny Phantom featuring the Iron Giant?
Just don't use that joke.
Would you recommend Ready Player One?
No, I wouldn't recommend Ready Player One. I mean, honestly, I don't know what it was. Like, the first hour and a half, I was like, this movie's surprisingly good. Like, not, like, actually quality. Like, it was surprisingly a lot better than the absolute garbage I assumed it was gonna be. And then it ran for about an hour too long. You know, I could feel that it was a quality filmmaking on the live action stuff, even though it wasn't the best. I feel that Steven Spielberg made it, but then you get to the fucking cartoon. This movie's a fucking episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, theatrically released, intercut with some fucking bullshit. Like, it should have... It probably would have been more daring if, honestly, the whole thing took place in the video game. Yeah. Literally cut out the human interaction parts. Or maybe, like, do that at the end. Like, just the end, they go into the real world, and they're like, maybe I should start living in the real world. Then not Miles Teller meets up with Artemis and like after the credit, or not after the credits, but as like a prologue or something. Or maybe have like that final chase scene, I don't fucking know. But they shouldn't have had so much time outside of the Oasis. Because it felt really like it's stimulating, overstimulation for like half hour, then like a boring 10 minutes out of the thing that we don't care about. We don't care about the life outside of the Oasis because they don't give us enough time to see it. So, you know, overall the problem is it was unfocused. It had a lot of problems. They should have focused on the story before focusing on pop culture references. And ultimately this movie was only 2.5 hours long because of pop culture references. They needed to get as many in as possible so that literally anybody who likes any sort of pop culture remotely at all would want to see this movie. It feels like such a cash grab. And I feel like Steven Spielberg is one of the most qualified directors, veteran directors of all time. And just the fact that you could feel that all he wanted was the paycheck is really what makes me say I would strongly not recommend this film. It is still better than Pacific Rim Uprising though. So, there's that. So Aiden, would you recommend this film?
I finally remembered what I wanted to bring. What? It's Simon Pegg.
Oh yeah.
In the movie, there's a robot butler who stands 24/7 at the Museum of Video Game Dinky or whatever the fuck is Dunkle.
Nothing about Video Game Donkey. He's not Video Game Donkey.
Video Game Man.
His name doesn't have Video Game in it.
Tony.
It's Hartford or something like that.
Tony Video Game.
Video Gameford or something.
It's
It's some fucking stupid ass name.
And in the end, the big twist is that this whole time Simon Pegg was the robot butler, and that he would literally spend 24/7, 365 days a year sitting around in this empty building no one went to, so that he could give a magic coin to the main character eventually. Like for 5 years straight, he just never slept or did anything, and he just sat around in an empty building staring at the walls. Like, this movie doesn't even have the ability to think backwards. It's not even thinking ahead, it's thinking backwards in the end of the script.
No, they don't think any
to make
logic
any
through
sense
it.
of this shit.
No one in the movie could think of any level of logic when it came to this movie. It's one of those movies where you're amazed that there's actually like 1,000 people that worked on this movie.
Yeah. Anyway, as far as recommending, you know, if you want to get into the genre of the real life to video games, there's about 1,500 things that do this better. Tron, Hunter, the Danny Phantom, fucking pretty much anything that has ever done this
Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase.
Yeah,
Scooby-Doo and
pretty
the
much
Cyber Chase is the OG
Cyber
Ready
Chase.
Player One.
Pretty much anything that has done this concept before has done it in a more interesting way. This is just like the most generic take on the concept, filled with surface level, cringeworthy pop culture references to pad out the running time. You know, I really don't think anyone is gonna like this movie except for fucking video game journalists, because they have IQs below like 70. Like, literally, if you have any ability to process information, like you're above the wheelchair fucking guy in the back of the bus who can only scream and be fed and have his diapers changed, you're probably not gonna like this terrible fucking movie. I hope Steven Spielberg is ashamed of himself for selling out so hard.
He probably has no shame.
No, he probably doesn't. And I feel bad for anyone who legitimately sits through all 3 excruciating hours of this movie. I do not recommend seeing this. It is a waste of your time, more than your money. Not just your money. If this movie was an hour and a half long and I paid $5 to see it, I'd be like, okay, that sucked, but whatever. This movie is 3 fucking hours of wall-to-wall terrible movie references, video game references, whatever. It's just excruciating. It's tiring. It took me 15 minutes to get tired of this fucking movie and its dumbass shtick. You know, the main character and Artemis stand around literally referencing things at each other. No things, just speaking back and forth movie references. It's excruciating. It's painful. It just drags on and on. Do not see this movie. And in conclusion, it's slightly better than Pacific Rim Uprising.
Yes, it is. I have to say it is, Papa.
You just said it was slightly worse than Pacific Uprising. Oh, no. I meant to say it's worse than Pacific Rim Uprising. Pacific Rim Uprising is far better than this.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Whatever you want.
Pacific Rim Uprising has one big advantage. Pacific Rim Uprising's an hour and a half long. This is like sitting and watching Pacific Rim Uprising
Honestly, which
twice
was...
in a row.
Here's the thing.
Pacific Rim
Here is the thing. Let me say, when I say here is the thing, that means I'm about to say a goddamn sentence. Aiden. It means I'm going to say a goddamn sentence. And what the sentence I got to say is that I honestly felt like Pacific Rim was so fucking unentertaining, stupid, and boring that I genuinely felt like I wasted my money more on that movie than any single movie I've ever seen before. And that's not a joke. That's not a meme. I legitimately was sitting there and I said I just wasted fucking money. Granted, I was buying your ticket too, but that said, the thing is, Pacific Rim was literally the stupidest fucking movie on planet Earth. I don't know why. Just the vibe I was getting from Pacific Rim the entire time was that this is the stupidest waste of money that's made for nothing but to grab cash. And that's what this movie was made for too. I don't get why. I just genuinely think that Pacific Rim was the most unenjoyable movie I've ever seen in my entire life, perhaps, other than Mother.
Pacific Rim Uprising also.
Pacific Rim is 2018's Mother. You know, that makes absolutely no sense when you think the fact that they're almost like polar opposites, where one is made as a cash grab and the other one is made as a Oscar grab. But
Pacific Rim.
Mother was an hour and a half of rape to my senses, and my ears and my body, and it was boring. And Pacific Rim was boring, and it was a rape to my ears, my senses, and my body. But mostly my wallets, because it was a big scam.
Pacific Rim Uprising also had a cringe-worthy Gundam reference. I think you were already asleep when they did that.
No, I actually remember that.
But at least
that
it's
happened
Gundam
way
Gear
earlier in
Fighters,
the movie. That happened like this. It's pretty early in the movie. Or, you know, I fell asleep like a little bit into the Japanese fight. I made it pretty much until they left Tokyo. He already triple combined.
This is probably the least interesting. Ready Player One is probably the least interesting take on
Okay, can we just end this shit? I'm so bored of this. Talking about this crappy ass movie. We're just continuing to talk about this stupid shit. You said that about 1,000 times in the review.
It's just.
I get that it's not.
So
It's a shitty Tron. It's a shitty Tron ripoff, boys. Even though it's nothing like Tron, it insists that it's a Tron ripoff.